And welcome back once again to the Regi and Rhoda podcast. This is part 2 of our R&R podcast with the legendary Dean of Sports, Greg Brinda, taking a look back at, well, what is now 30 years old, the beginning of sports talk radio in Cleveland, August of 1991. Sports Talk AM 1220 WKNR was born. Greg Brinda was a part of the initial opening day lineup of Robert J. Wright, Greg Brinda, Peter Brown, Jeff Sindelar, and Reggie Rucker. And we have moved on from that, talking about a lot of the coworkers that we have worked with and trying to share some stories with you about what we remember there, guys. And so when we ended the last one, you guys, talked a little bit about Jim Isabella, Greg, and what he meant to you, and Karlovic, the legendary producer for Jeff Sindelar, and what he meant to you, Michael Regi. I've got to tell you about a guy by the name of Barry Butel and what he meant to me. He meant my career, okay? Think about this now. I'm still doing updates in 94 and 95 as a 2020 ticker guy. I want to be one of you guys. I want to be like the Dean and Michael Regi and the professor. So I'm filling in anytime I get a chance. I'm hoping one of you guys gets the flu so I can fill in for you guys, right? I'm hoping you guys take vacation for 2 weeks so they might pick me to fill in for one of you guys on the weekend or whenever. I didn't care when, how, whatever. Yes, I'll fill in. Yes, I'll take the job, right? You need me for 1 hour, I'll do it. I didn't care. I wanted to be on the radio. So in the middle of the 95 season, the legendary 95 Indian season, host Barry Butel, who came, I believe, from the Buffalo Sabres to take the job at WKNR, decides he wants to get back into hockey in the middle of the 95 season. He decides to leave for the NHL. I think it was the Phoenix Coyotes that, he left Cleveland for. So he's like, yeah, I'm leaving. He didn't care that the Indians were having one of the greatest seasons, in their history whatsoever, that come from behind victories and the greatest lineup we've ever seen. He wanted to get back into hockey. So there I am doing updates. And all of a sudden he puts his 2 weeks in and they're scrambling. They don't know what to do. So they come to me and said, hey, would you like to, take over hosting the 10th inning? Yes. I didn't ask how much I was getting paid. I didn't care what it was. I just wanted to be on the air. Stupid move on my part and we'll get to that a little bit later on from a monetary standpoint, but I just wanted to be on the air. So because Barry Butel wanted to get back into hockey in the NHL, I got to step in the middle of the 95 season, okay, and take over the 10th inning for a team that went 144 and made it all the way to Game 6 of the World Series. You talk about being awestruck at first and then just being the luckiest guy on planet Earth. Greg, you remember you were traveling with the team. I didn't travel. I stayed back in Cleveland to do the shows from between then Gund Arena and Jacobs Field. We set up in that plaza there, or at Pete and Dewey's, where we would set up there. And I was doing post-game shows till 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning some nights, because the Boston Red Sox game, when Pena hits the home run in the 12th or 13th inning, whatever it was, we were on till 5 a.m. Or no, we stayed on till the morning show came on the next day. So to me, of those names that we ended the last podcast on, Barry Butel, to me, I owe him a lot because he wanted to get back into hockey, and that opened the door for me to do the 10th inning. And still, the greatest year of sports talk radio for me in my entire career. Greg and Michael, you guys remember that?
Yeah, I would say it was the best year. Jeff and I traveled to Boston, and we thought we would be there the weekend, and we were there for one night. He actually came back. I stayed till Sunday, and we all thought we were going to go to New York, remember, because we all thought the Yankees were going to beat the Mariners, Reg and Kenny. Yep. And the Mariners staged this incredible comeback, and Monday morning, glasses scrambling. I got to get you to Seattle. I go, okay. So it gets me on a TWA flight on Monday night from here to St. Louis to Seattle. I land in Seattle in the wee hours of the morning, and then I got to do a show from Cairo from 10 to 2, which is, well, it was West Coast time, so it was 7 o'clock in the morning there. Right. And I'm driving in the Seattle traffic, and I'm going, oh my, I didn't even know they had cars in Seattle, let alone bad traffic. And then we came back, and then I went again for the last. I went to Seattle twice in 7 days. talk about jet lag. And then we went to Atlanta twice
Yep.
in a week. Real quick, the Mancini story. So Sindelar, me, Mancini, we hired an engineer in Boston. So the Indians win the 3-game series against the Red Sox in Fenway. So we actually were doing a show at Jillian's pool place, which was right across from Fenway Park.
Yep.
So we did a pregame show, and then Jeff and I went to Jillian's to do a postgame show, and we're on like till 3 o'clock in the morning. So our hotel is like a half hour away from Boston. So we drive, we get this rent a car, and Mancini's driving, and he goes, are you guys hungry? Yeah, we're hungry. He said, I know this Chinese restaurant that's open all night. I go, okay. So we drive into this Chinese restaurant, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, we're starving. We're eating. Oh, welcome to, and there's like people in this restaurant. And I said, and I'm going, I need a beer. And the guy says, well, it's past, but I'll take care of you. So the waiter, and I think it was the owner, pours like 5 beers into a teapot, covers the teapot, and pours in these little teacups at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like the best Boston story ever.
That's great.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
That's excellent.
Yeah. Hey, Tony Pena, Albert Flexing, Kennedy, the manager of the Red Sox, in the rain. For me, doing that post-game show between Jacobs Field and Gund Arena, one of the greatest memories I'll have. And then at Pete and Dewey's for Seattle, when Lofton scores from second base on that Randy Johnson pass ball or wild pitch. And then, unfortunately, with the widest strike zone in the history of baseball, the Braves, who had 3 Cy Young Award winners, like they needed any help, would wipe the Indians out in 6 games, 1-0, as Jim Poole gives up the home run to David Justice, and Tom Glavine beats the Indians and wins their only World Series. But what a year that was. And that kind of jump-started my, I guess, host career as opposed to just being an update guy. And so I have Barry Butel. Thank you, Mr. Barry Butel. Is he still doing
hockey there, Kenny? Do you know?
You know what? The last I saw, he was with the Miami Dolphins. So he was in football with the Dolphins. So I'll have to look up and see where he's, where he's at these days. But that's the last I found of him.
Real quick. So I build everything around food. The great thing about Atlanta, we discovered the Varsity one night when it was open, like in the middle of the night. And right, Reg, there's nothing like the Varsity, man. The greasiest hamburgers and hot dogs right across from Georgia Tech is like the greatest place ever.
You got it. A legend. Yeah.
How about some of these names? I'm going to roll some other names out at you. You ready? High Rise, Ken Silverstein, Mike Catan, Dustin Fox. I mentioned Jack Callahan a while back, or maybe in part 1, he hired me, the news guy. Kevin Connors, Pam Ward, Matt Underwood, Andre Knott, Gene Winters, Will Burge, TJ Zuppe. Let's see, Neil Bender, Antonio Castro, Mark Kestashir, and I'll stop at Dawn Robinson, one of our ticker gals that worked with us back in the old days, the glory days of KNR and Broadview Heights. I'll go back to you, Michael Regai, and of those names I gave you, a bunch of them, obviously. Some thoughts on some of the names that we used to work with back at what we like to call the old frat house.
Yeah, the old frat house. How about that?
Yeah.
Before we do that, we got to add a name. We've got to add a name, as the professor called her, the queen of the hubcaps, Holly Copter.
Yep. Libby Rhodes and Holly Copter, both our traffic ladies.
Holly Copter, and Ode at Sindelar. Have some fun with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, wow, Kenny, those names that you mentioned, I tell you what, those, I always like Dawn Robinson. I like the fact that, let's see, Dawn and Pam Ward, right, were the ladies that were hired by the Cablevision crew.
Yep.
And I really enjoyed them. I thought they did a real nice job as ticker people. I'm not sure they got their just due from management, but again, that's probably a story for another day. But
they would go on elsewhere and do bigger things. Pam Ward at ESPN, and Dawn ended up being the PA announcer for the Indians.
Yes, she did. Yeah, no doubt about that. So, but very, very worthwhile and a very large part of the beginnings, both of them, of KNR.
Greg, what about you from that list of people that I mentioned? Since you were there from day one, what do you have on some of those people?
Pam and Dawn were as good as any ticker people we had. I mean, they just were really, really good. And, as evidence, Pam went on to much bigger and better things at ESPN down the road and very quickly. Kevin Connors was one of our original ticker guys. He was a little different. Kevin was different, man.
Brinda, real quick story. Kevin's doing an update, right? And I'm learning from him. I'm watching. He's a veteran, right? He's Kevin Connors. He's doing a high school football score update. And in the state semifinals, the St. Ignatius Chicos defeated St. Edwards 24-14 or whatever it was. Well, he didn't know that they were the St. Ignatius Wildcats. He thought the nickname was the Chicos because the nickname of Chuck Kyle is Chico, and he called them the Chicos, and I'll never forget it. He lost his mind. He couldn't believe he made that mistake.
Yeah.
We've all done it. I've done those type of mistakes. You remember it, but I learned so much from Kevin Connors back in the day, being a ticker guy and what it meant to be accurate and be on top of things. All right. How about these names? Ryan Isley, Daryl Ryder, Bernie Van Tilburg, Josh Sabo, Arturius Johnson, Eddie Millars, Walter Guzman, Gary Winters, Bob Nemeth, Scott Smoot, my old producer, Scott Scooter Reese, Annie Hoffman, and Katie Pollock. I'll stop there. And Greg, you can pick from that list of names of the old school KNR days.
Bernie Van Tilburg was my producer for a long time. I love Bernie, really good guy. The guys like Walter Guzman probably needed a better shot than they ever got at the station and never really got. The king of Mule, Eddie Millars, you could do a podcast just on Eddie Millars, right? And won't you agree, guys? We really could do it. We could do an hour on Eddie Millars, right?
Dude was a stickler, right? He wanted everything to be perfect. And you talk about blowing up when something wasn't right. And Eddie was handicapped from birth, with birth defects and that, but he never let it affect him. And he was a big part of running the board and producing shows there during the early days of KNR. And he scared the living daylights out of all of us when he drove 80 miles an hour into the parking lot and screeched to a halt to park his van that was specially adapted for his handicaps and everything.
Right.
Yeah. All of those, I think, Greg, you said it a moment ago, all of them, wanting to apply their craft or learn and hopefully, get to the point where they could move on. A lot of them wanted to become in front of the microphone. I think, that's pretty obvious, but all for as a producer there at that time, $5 an hour.
Yep.
$5 an hour.
That was it.
In 91, 92, 93, 94. And I don't think that escalated for quite some time, to be honest with you.
That's dedication, wanting to be a part of that team.
My recollection. Yeah. I tell you what, and I mean, a lot of them, and they just absolutely loved Cleveland sports and wanted to be a part of it. And a lot of great memories about all those producers that you mentioned, Ken.
Annie Hoffman, I still keep in touch with. She's got her own marketing business. And I had her on the Kenny and JT show on WHBC not too long ago. So she's doing well. Scooter's still producing at WTAM 1100, right?
Running a funeral parlor. Yeah, he runs
I know, funeral parlor and TAM, that combination. That's my old
That's
producer.
A combination.
Greatest Scooter Reese story ever, okay? We're trying to get Tiger Woods on the show. He's and we're trying. Mark Steinberg, Tiger's agent, and Steve Ligursky, and we're trying. Finally, it took us a year and a half to get a 5 to 7 minute taped interview with Tiger Woods. And you know what? I was thrilled. Looking back on it, it was during the Tiger Slam when he won all 4 majors, right? So the timing was perfect. And Scooter, to this day, and I haven't seen him in a long time, but I bust his chops so much about that because I give all the credit to Ligursky, because Ligursky had tie-ins to IMG where Steinberg and Scooter to this day, if I see him, I'll say, you know what, Steve Ligursky, Man, thank God he was able to get us Tiger. And Katie Pollock is still ahead of you as my greatest producer that I've ever had. Just to bust his chops, because you could push his buttons and it was like winding up a top and just letting him go. And I loved him to death because he worked his ass off as a producer. And then he ended up going to LA as a producer, and he ended up on the Blind Date TV show and got the stupid the Blind Date logo tattooed on his arm from being on the show in Hollywood because he produced the Chris Myers show out there. So God bless you, Scott Scooter Reese. You always have a special place in my heart.
I didn't even remember that. Wow. I next time I do morning there, I'll have to. Honestly, I didn't even remember that, Kenny. See, my memory does fail me occasionally. I don't remember that one.
Ask him to show you his tattoo from Blind Date. See if he still has it, or maybe he got it tattooed over. I don't know.
I'm gonna have to do that with Bill Wills. Hey, Bill, I gotta show you. Scooter's got this tattoo he wants to show you.
There you go.
When Drennan did mornings, who was his producer?
Was it Gino? Was it Gene Winters?
Was it Gene Winters?
Might have been. I think it was Gino. Yeah.
Because Gino left with Bruce. Well, when Bruce got the TV job, he went to produce Bruce's show on TV over there. So they were tied very close together.
Well, and that's when in the BS, I'll be honest about the BSK, and then BSK and I did 9 to noon. And at first he resented me. I didn't want to do, I had honestly had never done a show with anybody before. Seriously, up to that point.
And that's different. It's a lot different to adjust.
Right. But about 6 months into it, I think we each found our comfort level with each other, which you have to do, Reg and Kenny. Yep. And we did. And by the time we were done with the show, we could walk into that studio and just look at each other, and we knew what we were going to talk about that day. And it was really something special. We would just look at each other. We would laugh. It was just great. I'll still never forget this. And I know he's passed away, so he can't be here to defend this. One day, the BSK, I have no idea what we were talking. He used the N-word. Oh. And I looked at him like, I looked at him like, are you crazy? And he just looked at me like, I can't believe I just said this. And we just started to laugh hysterically. It was just crazy. And then we went to break, and he goes, brother, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened to me. I just got carried away. And I'm going, what did you say?
You know what Eddie Millar said about that? Eddie Millar said, great radio.
Great radio.
That's what that was right there.
Yeah, great radio.
That was like booger eating moron for Bill Needle and get off my air, you ignorant ass, from Michael Regai from when we were doing shows together.
Oh, boy.
I had to drop that in there, Reg. All right, more names as we go down memory lane.
Well, as I told you, just real quick, I got read the riot act by my lovely mother, Patricia Regai, when I did. Oh, she gave me hell for weeks about saying that on the air.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mama was listening, right?
So, all the time. Yeah. All the time.
All right, more names to throw out at you that were with us back in the glory days, the early years of WKNR's 1991 to 2021. It'll be 30 years in August. Mike Gelsinger, Jeff Thomas, Matt Lodi. I was going to bring these two up here. I'll do it again. Holly Copter, Libby Rhodes, Jim Taylor, a producer of the morning show, I believe, for Tolo and Tapier, Dave Grodzinski. Nathan Zagura actually started there as the fantasy consultant coming on my show. Jason Whippleman, Casey Koulis, Jermaine Pickens. How about some of those names, guys? From and guys, did Les do some stuff with us? And rest in peace, Les Levine, because he was on HK for a while. Did he come in and fill in with anything, later on with us or not?
He may have. Yeah. I don't recall that.
Okay.
I don't recall Tolo and Tapier. You mentioned Tolo and Tapier's producer.
Jim Taylor?
I have no memory of Jim Taylor at all. None, zero. I would know Jim Taylor if it was Elizabeth Taylor. I mean, it was, like I said, there's a few people in that. Most of them I remember. Some I go, And Jim Taylor's one of them. I have no idea who you're talking
I
about.
wasn't the biggest fan of the wonderful Mr. Tolo.
Yeah,
If I'm being
Yeah.
frank and honest about it. Tapier was, Paul was cool. I didn't understand why virtually every day of the week that they do my voice on their show. I mean, you come up with something else. But anyway, no, I had, Tapier was a very clever, witty radio personality that did a good job. Tolo, I had zero use for. I'm being very frank and honest because that's what I just zero. In my mind, zero sports knowledge, none.
You know
it
what,
was
Reg?
all just based on being a foof. Now, that's
a
me.
sidekick.
He probably felt, he probably for other reasons didn't like me. That's cool, but that's the way I felt about it.
Right.
I never understood why he was in sports talk.
Sindelar felt the same way. He'd call me up, Rhoda, did you hear what they said on that morning show today? He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Tell him what the guy's real name, And Thor didn't care, though. That was Thor.
No, he didn't care. You're right.
But
You're right.
You know what?
Didn't care.
So
why should management care? I guess
Right.
Throw them out there again.
Right.
I don't know. Were the ratings good, Greg?
They were decent, right?
I don't really think. I honestly, in those days, where you would need a good morning show to start the day. I don't think we ever had that. I mean, we had some entertaining guys. We had some different guys, but I don't think we ever had that morning show to really get us started back in the 90s. We just did. When Cablevision left us after 97, J-Corp bought us, and I did mornings from 98 into the early 2000s, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did have later, and then I went back to morning. So, but then we had already been on the air for, over a decade, and TAM was starting to reacquire all the sports franchises that they took back from us,
They left us for dead, Greg. They wanted to ruin us by taking the Indians and the Browns away from us. You remember?
And to be honest about it, I always reminded Karmazin, who bought us in 2006, the reason that you're buying this is because of us.
Absolutely.
We held it together for about nearly 10 years. We were owned by a religious company, Salem. And you know what they did? They kind of left us alone.
Yeah, Earl
but
Dengler.
We knew they weren't going to be there for the long haul. We traded frequencies with 850 and the Embrasia brothers.
Right.
At one point, I remember we were owned by 4 different people in 4 different years.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's right.
And we still stuck together.
Yeah, I got fired when TAM bought him. I was there for like 6 months. They fired me. I went and worked for Jack Callahan at Metro Networks for like 4 or 5 months. And that's when TAM was trying to bury us. And they put the Sports Babe on tape delay in afternoon drive opposite Mike Trevisano to really try and stick it to us. And that's when, and another guy that I will forever be grateful to, and I'll thank him, till the day I die. Marvin Durant was one of our either program directors or GMs.
He was our program director.
And he came to me and he said, again, I don't have a lot of money, but do you want to do afternoon drive instead of the Sports Babe? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Absolutely. I want to do afternoon drive. I think I was my dream job, so I wasn't the wisest business person back in the day, but I was a single dad and, working 2 jobs. So give me the afternoon drive spot. So we actually got to do live sports talk in the afternoon and got rid of the Sports Babe, to compete again. And we did pretty doggone good, and I had some fun battling Triv in those days with Bernie Van Tilburg doing impressions and, things of that nature. So, we made a good run at it. And like you said, Greg, kept it afloat until Craig Karmazin and Good Karma Broadcasting came in 06, 07, whatever it was, with Keith Williams and Sam Pimes and bought the station and eventually turned it into what it is now, ESPN Cleveland, AM 850. So good memories, fun memories. And I want to throw some more names out at you that maybe something will jog a memory and you can share it with us. We've already heard about the man who was on scholarship, our not general manager, President Frank Mancini. God rest his soul. GM Jim Glass, production manager Ken Dardis, and then some of the program directors, Jim O'Brien, Marvin Durant, Steve Legursky, Michael Luzak, and then Jack Callahan with News in the Morning, Ted Lux, Steve Dole, Joe Fritchen, Jason Yarrow, Errol Dengler, the mayor, Dave Erbach, and Ed O'Malley as some of the front office people, as I like to call them. So pick a name, Michael Regai, out of that group and share a story with us as we look back on 30 years of WKNR.
Yeah. I always liked Ken Dardis. I thought he was like, I used to ask, why are you with this particular outfit and doing sports like this? Because he was, a strong production guy.
Right.
And, I think he obviously enjoyed that part of it, but he'd always laugh. He said, Rick, I don't know nothing about any of this that you guys are talking about. He said, but you know what? It's a paycheck for me. So as long as they let me, at the time, as long as they let me keep keeping those carts clean and making sure that the commercials get on the air, I'm down with that. So I liked him. Yeah, he was a fun guy.
I got a quick Ken Dardis story for you. Okay. You ready?
Good. Yep.
So one day I'm in the production thing and he goes and buys a can of Cokes, okay, and comes back and writes it down. And I go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm writing down what I spend. I go, so are you telling me that you write down everything every day that you spend? Oh, yeah. That's how I keep track of everything. I said, so no matter at the end of the day, you know exactly how much you spend for that day on everything. He goes, yep. I go, wow.
Ken Dardis, hey, on top of things, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very impressive. Very impressive. And like you said, Reg, he didn't know anything about sports. He was,
care.
He was Ron Burgundy. Whatever was on the teleprompter, he would read it, right? So writes the script,
He's a great voice.
Do it. Yeah, he did in production. That's why he was there. I won't name the individual that I just read, and you'll understand why once I tell this story. Okay, but it was on the list. So I come back from a dentist appointment one day, right? And I don't know if it was either multiple fillings or a root canal, whatever it was, right? So I come back and I'm like, I'm talking to said individual, and he's like, well, can you still do the show? I'm like, yeah, I can still do the show. I'm numb, and they gave me some painkillers. And he says to me, oh, what'd they give you? And I'm like, well, I think it's Vicodin, or whatever. He goes, how many did they give you?
I know what you're talking about.
All right. And I'm like, well, they gave me this bottle. He goes, you think you're going to need all of those? And I'm like, yeah, I do, because no way that's all I need, something along those lines. So I'm like, yeah, I want to make sure in case it's hurting me tomorrow when I wake up, I have these. But it was like,
might have missed your calling. Rolling out Vicodin.
Yeah, it's like, no, that ain't happening. So that
you got any Percocet, Rhoda?
Yeah. that individual will remain nameless. Here's what we'll do. We'll get a break in right now here on the Regai and Rhoda podcast featuring Greg Brinda, looking at the old school days of WKNR. And then we're going to come back, guys. And I want like one or two or even three of your greatest WKNR memories as we're going to celebrate 30 years in August of 2021. So as we go to this break, it'll give you time to think about either greatest show memory, sports memory, or any kind of a memory that you've had from your years, because we were all hired and fired many times at WKNR, but it's still near and dear to our hearts. And we'll talk about that when we return right after this.
Hello, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of the Producing While Asian podcast. Join us to listen in on conversations with everyone who identify from producers to non-producers who all are part of the AAPI community. There's all that and more on the Producing While Asian podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, I'm Jason.
And I'm Gary, and we love ball cards.
And if you love ball cards too, good news. You just found your new favorite podcast. From breaks to grading,
And from collecting to flipping, join us on the Ball Card Show.
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
Hi, my name is Sam Post, owner of Phenomwell CBD Store and PhenomwellCBD.com. That's like phenomenal, PhenomwellCBD.com. Tune in where we talk with experts about how the amazing hemp plant can make a difference for people's health and well-being from the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, it's Tito, host of the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Get all the news and analysis you need to dominate your fantasy league. I've been doing this as long as anybody in the business. I can help give you the edge in your leagues. It's the Premier Fantasy Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome back to the R&R Podcast. Regai and Rhoda, thrilled to have the Dean of Sports, Greg Brinda, with us as we are reminiscing on the glory days of WKNR. 1991, August of 1991 is when it officially started, and Brinda was part of the opening day lineup. And here we are approaching August of 2021, 30 years. So we're looking back on our days at Broadview Heights, the fraternity house, as we called it. Steve Dole, still a good friend of mine, one of the production gurus over the years there, still does some work there today. And he was telling me about it.
Really?
Oh, yes. He still has to go in there and transmitter work
Love
and things
Dole.
of that nature.
What
One of the best.
a great production guy.
Oh,
The
phenomenal. And
Yes.
still doing it in the
Yeah.
business. And he's almost 60. How about that? So happy belated birthday and good luck coming up on 60, Steve Dole. So when we look back on all these years, Greg, and I'll start with you. Give me one or two or even three, whatever you got. Some of your greatest memories of being a part of the history that is Sports Talk, AM 1220, AM 850, WKNR, ESPN Cleveland, WKNR, all of the above.
The first one was when they closed Cleveland Municipal Stadium. And we were part of that final year in 93, which started as tragic as it was with, the tragedy in Winter Haven. And it culminated with the closing of Cleveland Municipal Stadium, Kenny. Just being there for the final time before we went to the new place. I was able to take my dad and my sons. That it was just really, really cool to be part of the inner workings of that. And then you go to the new stadium, which was cool, but it really didn't get really cool until 95, when the Indians, just making the postseason for the first time since 1954. And being able to travel in a 3-week span to Boston, Seattle twice, and Atlanta twice, and literally live on adrenaline for 3 weeks will never be duplicated. It just wouldn't be. And then again in 97, to be on that final weekend in Miami in Game 7, I probably walked that whole stadium a half a dozen times. And the thing that I remember was before the game, this was going to be Herb's last game, Herb Score's last game. And Matt Underwood was doing the pre and post game show on the radio. I was just covering the game, and Tom and Herb were in the booth. And I just remember walking into the booth before the game started, and Herb was just kind of being Herb by himself and watching the NFL game that was on TV in the booth. And then standing behind them as the game unfolded. And I'm going, I don't know if we're going to win or lose, but can there be any better place to be in the broadcast booth in Game 7? Wow. Well, we lose. Everyone is crushed. I walk out of the broadcast booth, and right next to me was Dave Dombrowski, the GM of the Marlins.
Oh, wow.
And we walk into this elevator together, and I'm going, well, man, I could have the first interview with Dombrowski. I was so pissed. I couldn't do it, man. I just kind of looked at him. I didn't even consider it. But I had him all to myself. It was me and him in this elevator going down to the bowels of God, I don't even know what that stadium was called back in 97. And being there, it was something. I got a chance to go to spring training a bunch of years. That was a lot of fun. I remember when the station all went to spring training. Remember?
Yes, we did.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. We remember
Yeah.
we all went to spring training.
Howard Johnson's. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Howard Johnson's, and that was what I remember about this, guys. You and the BSK you hated the fly, and so did he.
Yes.
Remember, you needed like 9 drinks to get on an airplane.
It was 12 vodka and orange juices. Yes.
And the BSK wouldn't. The BSK drove to Florida.
Yes,
from
he
home.
did. Yep.
He
What?
drove.
Yes.
Did he?
He
Wow.
drove to Winter Haven, Reg,
Yeah.
from
baby.
Euclid because he refused to fly.
Yeah.
I'm going, you're crazy.
Uh-huh.
Just nuts.
That's quite a drive. Yeah.
For me,
That's quite a
Greg, that
drive.
wasn't the only time alcohol was involved during that trip to Winter Haven. Let's just say that I woke up one night and I didn't know where the hell I was.
I just remember the first time I went to Winter Haven, and I'm going, where the hell is the ocean? And there's like no ocean. I'm going, we're in Florida. I went to Florida in college 4 years in a row. I went to the Keys. I'm used to the ocean. I'm in the middle of Florida, and there's stupid lakes. I know I got a lake where I live.
So you had to create your own fun in Winter Haven. So Reg, this is what we did for Greg Brinda the one year. Every restaurant we went to, we told the waitress it was his birthday, right? Every night out. That was the running gag. So wherever we went to eat, it was Brinda's birthday, and they came and they sang, and he got the desserts for free every night we went out. And we did it on the flight home with the pilot and the plane saying happy birthday to Brinda on the flight home from Winter Haven one year. How about that?
Could be nothing better for you, Dean. Greg went through, the same thing Greg just mentioned for me, the 95 Indian season, also 94 Brown season that turned into 95, and the New Year's Day playoff win. Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, the D coordinator, Vinny Testaverde, a quarterback, and got that playoff win over the New England Patriots. And then doing the shows all around that were very, something I'm always going to remember. But the number one memory for me, now we got to move way ahead, but it's still KNR, that June night in 2016, and the Dean and I were together.
Yeah.
Dean and I were together and hugged each other as the Cavaliers won the city's first championship in what feels like a million years. And a very special night that Greg and I, as I said, shared together as we were doing the Cavaliers postseason play. Greg was the host of the during the regular season too.
Right.
And then they brought me in with them to do the playoff side, and that was a wonderful night. Greg's daughter was there. My son Cal came in earlier. He was 13 years old, so it was a night I'll always remember. And it was something that since Greg was the first one here, when Greg was the sports director at WERE.
Right.
When I was doing weekends on the TV
5.
side at Channel 5 at the time with, first Gibbs Chanley and then Nev Chandler. But Greg called me and said, hey, you want to come in and fill in once in a while if I can't be there or whatever? Yeah, absolutely. Love to. So that's how Greg was the one that got me started on the radio side in Cleveland, in addition to TV in 1984. So for he and I in 2016, there's certainly been no championships in that time. Right. So for Greg and I to be together in 2016 on the night that the Cavaliers won it all was extremely special, and something I will always have at the top of my list.
I just remember being there for the 4 straight finals, and I think it was in the final when I'm going, man, we were spoiled for 4 years, man. Even though we only won 1. I'm going, you know what? Once this run is over with LeBron, and we all knew it was going, I'm going.
Probably ain't coming back.
It ain't. And you know what? Seeing another championship is probably not going to happen in our lifetime. Even if we live another 20 some years.
I know. Unless something drastically changes. Probably not. No.
That's not happening anytime soon. For me, looking back, like I said, getting thrown into 10th inning in the middle of the 95 season, the highlight, number one, as far as on-air stuff, right? Also, when the Browns left town, and how we broke the fax machine at the NFL office by giving out the phone number on the air for the Browns fans to, to call and complain to, the NFL about Modell moving the Browns. That was, huge on-air stuff. You look back at it, 9/11, 2001, right? I mean, oh my, I mean, do you remember, where you?
So Kenny, I'm doing 9 o'clock in the morning. So
Yeah.
the day before, Legursky, our program director, he said, Steve was always going to school. Steve's probably the most educated man on the planet. So Steve says to me, he says, Greg, tomorrow morning, I'm going to be at Cleveland State and I'm going to be really tied up with stuff. He said, and only call me if the world is coming to an end.
Oh my.
He honest to God said that to me. I go, okay, Steve. Okay. So that next morning, I think Drennan was on.
He was
first, and then
Yep.
The BSK and I were on.
Yep.
And I'm just kind of sitting in the newsroom because my office was off the newsroom, and I'm watching TV, and I'm kind of trying to process what I'm watching. I'm going, did a plane just hit the World Trade Center? And then the next one did, and I'm going, did it get caught up in the smoke of the World Trade Center? And then and then I go, I'm going to have to make this call. And I said, hey, I know you told me to call you if only the world's ending. I said, guess what? And he looked at me and go, turn on the TV. You'll want to see this.
Yeah, it was amazing. I was watching it at home. My son, I had just taken him to school, saw the first plane hit, not live because it was, then live as they're broadcasting the news, saw the second plane hit. And the next thing I did was I got in my car, and that's when Drennan was on. I turned him on, and I went and I got Cameron out of school because I didn't know what the hell was going on, right? We're under attack possibly. Where's it going to end? What else could happen? So I went and got him out, and I remember listening to Drennan and you guys, and, so that obviously sticks in my mind as an unfortunate, memorable moment, as a part of WKNR. The 50 greatest NBA players, 97 All-Star game.
Oh, we had, I had courtside seats under the basket. That will never happen again.
Kobe Bryant won the dunk contest. Bobby Sura was terrible representing the Cavaliers in the dunk contest. I think Glenn Rice was MVP maybe that game, if memory serves me correct.
Right.
And then seeing those 50 guys come out, well, not 50. I think there's 48 out
49.
of the 50? 49 out of the 50.
Jerry West didn't come.
Yeah, the logo couldn't make it. So, that stands out. I have a batting glove from Sandy Alomar from the 97 All-Star game he gave me when he was the MVP and hit the home run, from that year. So, on those, to me, it wasn't work. That was my dream job. I thought I was going to be there forever. I didn't want to leave, right? It wasn't my choice. So, but that's our business that we're in, because I loved it so much. So, those are the on-air moments that stand out. But the other part of it for me is I was a single dad at the time. So my son grew up at the radio station, and people that listen to me still to this day ask me more about my son and how he's doing, than sports sometimes, because I would reference him on the air, or he would be at the station working with Steve Dole in production, pushing buttons he wasn't supposed to push. And now he's 29 years old and living in, Portugal. So, that was a special part for me too, being able to bring him to work at times. And then just you, Michael, you, Greg, Jeff Sindelar, all the friends. My goodness, we named Bill Needle, Jug Dish, as I called him, was a friend, the great Kendall Lewis, BSK, Alan Davis, Abraham Allende.
That's right. Abraham Allende.
Yeah. So he, did the 10th inning show. And also did Tribe Talk on the weekends. I learned from, Alan Davis, as he was called on air. Ronnie Duncan and I had a unique relationship when, he was filling in at times. Yeah. Antonio Castro, I had him on not too long ago. Latino Heat, our boxing expert, in the days back there. And then some of the guys that are there now, Jason Gibbs, Casey Koulis, Dave DiNatale, who produced our show, Michael.
Yes.
We talk about
terrific guy, true pro. Outstanding.
And sorry
at
it
what he
took us
does.
this long to get to him, but he was more of the, when we moved downtown as opposed to the frat house there.
Right.
And Bruce Hooley, Mark Munch Bishop, Emmett Golden, Gerard Cherry, LaCharles Bentley that I worked with, Aaron Goldhammer, Tony Rizzo, those guys. We mentioned the new ownership group that still has them. I have a lot of great friends from, I was there, 21 years. Greg, how many years did you end up lasting there, being on and off, fired and rehired, and that till you finally said goodbye? How many years were you at KNR?
I got fired for about a week and then walked in one day and said, "You can't fire me." And they go, "You're right." And they rehired me a week later. And my wife calls it the greatest save in the history of business.
We needed you in the ninth inning against the Marlins and not Jose Mesa to create the
I
greatest
said, "I
save."
just saved my job." She goes, I said, I told her what I did. She goes, "Really?" I go, "Yeah." I go, I'm back to work. So it was I was there 26 years, Kenny, minus a week.
Wow. For me, on and off, it was 21 years. There, 6 months off because of TAM buying us and, me having to go work for Jack Callahan again at Metro and then coming back and all that. But 21 years for me. Reg, what about you? What would it be like?
I said, when we started, I was never full-time like you guys. I was always calling play-by-play and doing the television thing. But from 91, right?
Yeah.
When
Yep.
it began, all the way through 99. Now, by that time, I was 7 years deep into calling the Cavaliers on TV, but still when, they needed me and if they wanted me, and in the
Right.
summertime, once in a while, I'd go in and fill in or do a weekend or do a specialty show. And then got a lot more difficult when I was doing the Cavaliers and Baltimore Orioles concurrently. So then Kenny, what was it, 07? Was it 2007 on that second go round when that's when started doing some of the Cavs and Browns post game shows.
Right.
And then you and I, I think was it 2010 or 11, I started doing Afternoon Drive. And then you and I joined each other in 13.
Yeah, Afternoon R&R.
So I guess, Afternoon R&R. So I guess if you put all that together, I guess it's a total of about 16 years.
Okay. Yeah. So between the 16, 26, 42, 67 years between the three of us there, at the radio station that is still up and running. And I got to mention Chris Fedor too, a former producer of mine as well, trying not to forget anybody over the years, which is hard to do.
We keep seeing Jim O'Brien in the Trulicity commercials on TV.
Yeah. Quick Jim O'Brien story. You ready? Here we go. Jim O'Brien was one of our program directors. He's an actor now in Hollywood. He's doing movies. He's doing commercials.
Right.
I keep in touch with him. And I even told him this not too long ago when I reached out to him. He called me into his office remember the one day he dropped about 20 F-bombs and blew up in the conference room, Brenda and Reg? He just lost, you remember that?
I was there that day.
They played good cop, bad cop that day. Yep. We had a bad book.
Yep.
Glass was the good cop.
Yep.
And then he made O'Brien be the bad cop.
Yep. It does happen in business.
I remember
right?
that.
Yeah. It was F this, F that. So he was acting then. Okay. And that's what he's doing now. So he's very good at it.
Right.
But he calls me in his office one day and you talk about motivation. He calls me and he says, you're not that good on the air, but you're not that bad on the air either. Okay. And I'm paraphrasing here. He goes, you're kind of like Herb Perry for this station. You're kind of that utility guy. And you can do a little bit of everything. Nothing great, but nothing horrible. So why don't you try and pick your game up a little bit? It was supposed to be some kind of pep talk or whatever. Right. And I thought, I'm like, Herb fucking Perry? That's who you're comparing me to? Seriously? I'm Herb Perry, and I had been doing, different time slots and updates and all this. And I still to this day, I laugh about it because it kind of inspired me, I guess. But then I just shook my head and was like, okay, whatever.
The day we had that meeting and he's MFing us and all this other stuff. And I'll never forget this. He says, "I can do all of your jobs." And I turned to Sindelar and I go, "If he speaks one more word I'm going to kill him. I'm going to get up and I'm just going to end his life in this room.
And you know what, Michael? I saw Brinda throw down in
Yes.
the PR room at the Coliseum at a Cavs game with a New York writer battling over a telephone when they had to do reports by phone back in the day. Brinda was throwing down with a New York writer and kicked that guy's ass too. How
Legendary.
about that?
Yeah, taking down the brash New Yorker. Nice, Brinda.
I didn't want to bring this up, but there was one other occasion. One morning, Mike Wolf just was on my nerves.
Uh-oh.
No.
And he just, and I said, Mike, just stop. And he just wouldn't stop. So remember in that newsroom, we had that news booth that was in that newsroom.
Mm-hmm.
I walked over him. I said, you really got to stop. And he was just in one of those cranky moods, you know.
What do you mean, Greg? What do I got to stop for, Greg? What are you talking about?
I grabbed him by the shirt. I threw him into the news booth and I said, Mike, you don't want to continue this. Trust me. Trust. And he looked at me because I just grabbed him and I threw him into the booth. I go, you really don't want to do this, Mike? Stop.
The enforcer.
He started like breathing hard and go, I'm going, oh my God, I'm going to give this guy a heart attack. Right? You know, like
that's
St.
Ignatius education on the west side.
Stop this.
Yeah,
the
that's
closer and the enforcer. Greg Brinda, look at that. But and we all did our Mike Wolf. Anybody care? Anybody care what's going on with the Browns? And he'd sit there and he'd read the box score from the newspaper at 6:30 in the morning. And look at this. So-and-so went 2 for 3 last night. Anybody care? You know, and it was, we had unique characters, man. That's what made it so great.
Like I said about Tolo, another one I didn't have a whole lot of respect for as far as his knowledge or acumen in sports. And yet that's what he's doing for a living.
Right.
Another one.
One day, I forget what he said, and I'll just pick a name. Somebody called him and said, hey, Thor, what do you think about that Davis guy that plays for South Carolina? And Thor's like, yeah, he's pretty good. Real fast. He's a heck of a player. And I'm like, Thor, there is no Davis on the team. He goes, well, I thought there might be, so I just figured I'd say that, you know,
of course,
something along those lines. And that was Thor being Thor, though. That's what made him, you know, for his personality, for that Tolo and Tapie show, part of it, which he wasn't supposed to be the sports expert. He was supposed to be the sidekick to the man of many voices in Paul Tapie, who was doing the lottery show back at the time and everything like that. So
in the first year we had Don Webster did weather for us.
That's right.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Jack Callahan did the news and Don Webster did the weather for us.
The best news guy I've ever worked with is Jack Callahan.
Oh,
I did mornings for the 6 worst months of my life doing updates, and I'd get there at 3:30, 4 o'clock at the latest to write my sports updates. Jack Callahan's first newscast was at 6 o'clock sharp. I'm there at least 2 hours in advance. I'm looking at my clock, 5:55 a.m., 5:56 a.m., 5:58 a.m., 5:59 a.m., finally, the door opens with 15 seconds to spare, goes in the newsroom. The on-air light comes on, and like he had rehearsed it 30 times over, he belted out the newscast, and his day started. And I was, to this day, it's the greatest thing I've ever seen somebody be able to just walk in, get there, and perform like Jack Callahan did. And I got Jack Callahan, Barry Butel, and Marvin Durant. I owe a lot to those guys for taking a chance on me. And then you guys, as well as the professor, for being my mentor, allowing me to still do this with my old college roommate now, Jeff Turk, at WHBC Radio in Canton in afternoon drive still. So made a career out of it, still fooling them after all these years. We all did for many, many years and have great memories and have remained great friends. And that's why I wanted to do this, Greg, especially after you told me it was going to be 30 years this August that Sports Talk Radio started in Cleveland. So from me to you guys and all the names we mentioned, and to the ones I didn't mention, if I forgot somebody, I apologize. Thank you for letting me be a part of a very special place and to be able to make a career out of it, especially to you, Reg and Greg, for being co-workers, but more importantly, friends over the years.
That's a key, the friendship part of it.
Yep.
Yeah, at some point this will all end for all of us. And we're they're going to tell us not to do anything anymore, or we're going to volunteer. And I've always said this, and I tell this to the guys, all the young guys at TAM, and I go, the day that I do my last show, it will be my last show. I will never go back and talk. It'd be like, I'm going to do it like Carson did. It was over. It's over. And it's, I'm not going to be a guest on anybody's show. I'm not going to reminisce. This will be it. You get one shot, and that will be it. And that'll be it. And I'll walk away. And
How close, Brinda? How close are you to retirement?
I'll be honest with you. TAM re-energized me. It really did. So probably another 20 years.
Okay. And he'll be still taking on New York writers in the newsroom for Wi-Fi access or something like that now, instead of the fax machine or the telephone from back in the day.
That's right. It was a telephone.
Oh, that's great. And Reg, what about you, man? You're still doing it, doing the TV thing and doing it well. What about you?
Yeah, well, pretty much just college football and basketball, Kenny, and I'm fine with that. I've told you guys, disenchanted with the way things transpired here.
Yep.
With my 14 years calling Cavalier games, I didn't see that coming. I never thought it was going to happen. I thought I was going to be the late Joe Tate of the television side. So it didn't happen that way. And like Greg said, you kind of move on and do other things. But, same thing. I think we all can agree. And Greg and I got you by, 5 to 10 years, Kenny. So I realize in the next couple of years, because on the TV side, Greg can appreciate this because he did his stint with ESPN. I know my time is getting shorter. I understand that because they want younger play-by-play men and women. I mean, the bottom line, this is going to be my 45th year when I start in August calling games. So they know that. So they know, do the addition. And so, look, I cherish every time I get to call a game. I still love it. It's still a passion of mine. And I'm hoping at least a couple more years. Yeah. But, as we know, that's not necessarily in my hands or my call.
Right. Now, as in the business we're in, a lot of times it's not in our hands. Right. And so you go as long as you can, do the best you can and enjoy it. And, one of the other things that was, I was lucky. I lost both my parents at a very young age, 58 and 62 years old. Right. And they got to see a little bit of what I did. My dad in 98 passed away. The Mark McGuire, the Sosa home run chase, we got to go to a game, before he passed away, and he got to hear me a little bit, doing some afternoon drive and things like that. But for me, I still enjoy what I'm doing. And in Stark County at WHBC, Pam Cook and Larry Gothrop are great, people to work for. I get to do the show with my old college roommate, fraternity brother, Jeff Turk, JT. And I'm re-energized with how much high school sports means to Stark County football, basketball wise down there. It's amazing. They'd rather talk high school football than Browns or Buckeyes even. That's how big. And we're entering our 77th year of doing high school football on the radio there. So that's keeping me, energized like you, Greg, and doing the afternoon drive show there. So as long as they'll have me, I'm going to continue to do this. But at some point, I'm heading to Siesta Key, Florida, and opening up a tiki bar. And you guys are welcome anytime to be the Norman Cliff sitting at my tiki bar talking about the old times. Huh? Yeah,
you and your guy Dickie V down there.
Yeah.
My next career will be the Equalizer, but that's still a few years away. So I'll be good. So
yeah. Hey guys, this was a lot of fun. Greg, thanks. Greg Brinda joining us, the Dean of Sports. Thanks for coming on. 2 episodes worth of the Red Guy and Rhoda podcast, looking back on the glory days, the beginning of KNR, leading up to what will be the 30th anniversary this August. Continued success and good health, my friend.
Do you think they'll actually celebrate the 30th anniversary?
I don't know.
Feeble attempts at 20 and 25, so I'm not expecting anything.
I'm not sure what's going to go on. Neither of us, or all three of us, none of us won the great talk show host from the
Correct,
contest
yeah,
that
right.
they had.
Yeah, I went to a guy that doesn't work there, but that's okay.
Yeah. So, but I hope they do, because hey, it's still up and running. As Sindelar told me, this station will go on after I'm gone, so it doesn't matter when I quit or not, Rhoda. And he was right. And while I was gone and you're gone, it's still there. And there are people that listen to it. And I hope it lasts a long time, because we're able to say that we were part of the beginning of what is still, WKNR in Cleveland. And it's, talked about throughout the country as a sports talk station that has deep roots in the city of Cleveland. And you two guys, along with everybody else we've mentioned today, were a big part of that. So Greg, thanks for joining us on this special edition.
Loved it. It was terrific. Reg, you take care,
Great
bud.
stuff, Brinda. Great stuff. Great to have you.
And Reg, we'll get together again sometime here in the not too distant future, maybe
We
after
will.
the Cavaliers hopefully win the draft lottery and change their fortunes, and we'll see where the Indians are in the standings. And
It's June now. We're getting closer to the NFL and the Browns.
And then
there you go. There's the
Yeah.
helmet. That's what I'm hanging my hat on.
Absolutely.
It's
Hey,
going
guys.
to be a hell of a ride. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It is going to be fun, and we'll be breaking it down on the Reg Iron Rhoda podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Networks. Thanks to our producer extraordinaire, Dave Emmert. Great job as always.
Appreciate it,
But
David.
most of all, thanks to everybody out there in the podcastosphere for tuning in to this special edition with Greg Brinda on the R&R podcast. Talk to you soon. So by coming to the end of this podcast, I just realized I was writing down names that I forgot to mention during part one or part two of this Reg Iron Rhoda podcast with Greg Brinda. And there are too many to just list here at the end of the show. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a part three of a look back at the birth of All Sports Talk Radio, AM 1220 WKNR 31 years ago in 1991. So if your name was not mentioned in parts one or two, it's because we're old and we forget a lot of things. But I tried to write down more names, so we're going to bring back this podcast with the Dean of Sports, Greg Brinda, and mention more of our colleagues that we worked with and some of the callers that left an impression on us over the years of working at Sports Talk AM 1220 WKNR back in the day. Again, the glory days from 91 through 2006. So we're going to do a part three with Reg Iron, Rhoda, and Brinda. Greg Brinda. And for those of you that know what that is, you're laughing right now. Others that don't, will tell you about it in part three. That's going to drop on June 30th here on the Press Play Podcast Network. And you'll be able to get part three of this look back at All Sports Talk AM 1220 WKNR radio. So hopefully that'll make the people happy that we forgot in these first two editions. So look forward to working with Greg and Michael again, talking about more of you out there that were a part of what is the success story that is currently ESPN 850 WKNR.